Yeah, that's a little bit about what we do.
Yep, right on. And then I'm just going to be recording this portion just in case anybody who couldn't make it today, because I know there are a few people who had classes.
Mhm.
So if you see the recording sign, that's what's happening. But right on.
Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to our alumni introductions. Each alumni that is here has their own separate slide, and with that, you're just gonna be introducing, of course, your name, your undergraduate major, and the year you actually graduated. On top of that, what graduate school you actually are attending right now, your master's focus, and then the industry you may work in, and then a little bit on a little bit of a lighthearted note, a little fun fact about yourself. But without further ado, let's go ahead and move on to our first alumni right here, Joshua Guerra.
Thank you. So my name is Joshua. I go by he, him, his. I graduated 2014 in mechanical engineering, Cal Poly Pomona. I started as a transfer student. So when I arrived to Cal Poly Pomona, I had heard of Hermanos Unidos and I joined on the spot, basically. So kind of got a late start. I was always the older guy in Hermanos Unidos, so kind of continue that trend. So I worked as an application engineer for 4 years, and then again as a sales engineer or in the engineering space for another 2 years. So I was 6 years removed from college, and I got the itch to come back. Decided to do a master's program in business administration. So I'm a kind of a blend currently of engineering and business. I don't work in one particularly, but currently I'm a product manager at a industrial manufacturing company. So fun fact about myself, besides being a family man now, I gave up drinking 2 years ago. Me and my wife were having a tough time having a baby. It took us 2 years to have a baby. So when I went sober, he came 6 months later. So there we go. Point for potency.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction, Joshua. Appreciate it. All right. So with our next alumni that we have Josue.
What's up, guys? Sorry, I can't turn on my camera. I'm in a government building, but yeah. So I'm Josue, also known as J Figgy. I graduated in 2019 undergrad with my bachelor's in animal science pre-vet. Then I did continue with to get my master's at Cal Poly also, and I graduated with that last year, 2021. And it was also in animal science, but my thesis focused on cattle specifically. And now I work for USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture. And fun fact, I don't know, I'm sure most of you guys know I'm a twin. So yeah.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Josue, or as otherwise known as J Figgy. Appreciate you for showing up. And our next alumni that we actually have is Mario.
Hello, everyone. So I'm your youngest one that recently graduated. So my name is Mario Mendoza. I go by he, him, his, él, and I did my undergrad in political science. Graduated recently. I am doing my graduate program at UCR. I'm doing it my master's of public policy. Currently, I have 3 jobs right now, a little bit like all over the place. But I am working with the City of Ontario, launching their mental health initiative. I also work on campus doing COVID distribution. And I also am doing, I have a TA position doing global inequality and focusing in that realm. So my area of focus is really in the public sector and public health. I already have started my capstone. So our capstone is going to be environmental policy in the embedding a little bit of social justice as well as public health in it. And a fun fact about me, I would say I basically own almost all of Bad Bunny's collaborations. So I just need the pink, the Easter ones, and the mochas. And after that, I have basically all his collabs.
Alrighty, thank you, Mario. Appreciate that. You say you own almost all of the Bad Bunny collabs? Wow, I'm kind of jealous actually because I just recently had a Bad Bunny this past year as well.
Hey,
But
bro, how
nice.
about that the HU freaking collab with the Bad Bunny? You got that one too?
I got that one too.
Eva.
Add that to the list. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Marley. We appreciate you for being here as well. But next, we're just gonna go ahead and move on to like the more Q&A section of this because this is a panel. We want to go ahead and give some questions to our alumni, hermanos who have graduated and they currently are in grad school or attending grad school. Because I know I have personal like plenty of questions, but anybody who doesn't have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, or if you'd like, go ahead and unmute and to say it as well. But if nobody wants to start off, I actually have a really personal question as well for our three alumni here today. So the first question I wanted to start off with is, what was the hardest thing to adjust when going from undergraduate to graduate school? So anybody can answer any order. Yeah.
I mean, I can start since I'm like still dealing with that transition. I would say really acclimating to the intensity of, at least for mine, like the intensity of the courses. This previous quarter was probably the toughest quarter. We did probably see about like 4 individuals drop out of the program midway into the quarter. So this was probably like really intense. I think it's understanding like the amount of work that goes into, at least my program's full time. So those simple 3 classes really are draining, and understanding like, you know, that amount of work of just going to these classes and what's being kind of like demanded out of you. At least mine are really focused on like either very much critical thinking or a lot of like reading. So you walk out basically mentally drained like all the time. So I think it's like really adjusting to that aspect and like putting yourself, there's a lot of resources out there like I use to help me adjust to not doing that much reading, you know? So there are services that I do use and I pay for, and that's like one burden they have to take on, but understanding that there's obstacles, but are you gonna like kind of go about it?
All right, I want to add on to what Mario said. Yeah, so I agree. The hardest part for me was probably, shoot, how do I put this? So in undergrad, you do have like a social life, but once you hit, depending on your program, like just forget about your social life while you're in the program. Because personally, I was working full time, and then I had 6 classes because it was like a fast-paced program. And then I still had to do my thesis project. And then once I got my data from the thesis project, I had to do my actual thesis, which was over 100 pages. So yeah, it was just the stress of like trying to manage your time. So yeah, overall, it was a tough 2 years, but it was definitely worth it.
I'll have the baby crying in the background, but hopefully you guys can hear me. If you can't, just let me know. I want to start by saying I can relate to you guys because when I started the program, it was mid-COVID. So having all the classes online, and I can directly compare in undergrad that social life you have to have buddies to study with, always kind of having that feeling of having the hermanos support you, and just the things you take for granted. Going online was very lonely. I have my family, but for sure, if you're in a program, you only talk to people, you know, through the webcam, and half the time no one has their cameras on, so you're literally just a name there. And so the networking, the quality just goes down so much. So the transition, now that we're back in person, is definitely normal for me, but I definitely recognize that can be a challenge for some, because all they've known is Zoom. So now you're having to commute, pay gas prices. You're having to learn how to socialize and how to network on the fly, rather than learning it from like a freshman, kind of having that awkward couple years and then you break out of your shell. So it's kind of it's different, but the challenges are there, always depending on your background and what life cycle you're in. If I was single, working, and doing a part-time program, easy. But like you can hear what's going on in the background. I'm working full-time, doing it part-time at night. I have a family now, and I still have hobbies that I want to do, but definitely can't divide up my time as I want. So definitely a challenge.
All right.
Can we ask another?
So-
Can we ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead, Ivan. And first of all, thank you for all of you for the responses you gave us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really do appreciate those responses. One of my question is, so something that most undergrads and I'm sure all of us have felt in the past would be that imposter syndrome, going into into uh, into grad school. Now knowing that you can do it, you graduated and you were able to attain your undergrad, or you were able to accomplish that. Like, do you still feel like you still suffer from imposter syndrome at times in when you're in grad school? And if so, like, how do you deal with it? Is it still the same way as you did in undergrad, or do you deal with it in a different way since circumstances have changed in a bit?
I do have a response to that because I'm going through that. The new job I just hired to as a product manager, I didn't have any experience. So when I went to interview, I basically pitched myself as I'm halfway through my program. So I'm not this, established business major. I'm still learning and I don't feel like I'm ready, but I can be ready. I'm moldable, I'm humble, and I bring myself with a sense of curiosity still, right? I'm not burnt out and stuck in my waves. So the qualities that you can attack those feelings of imposter are going to be the humbleness, your curiosity, and your hard work to the table to combat that.
Awesome, thank you. I love that response, bro. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so another thing I want to add is like when I was in grad school, of course, and undergrad, I always had, even still to this day, like I feel like imposter syndrome is always going to be there. But the way I just would get through things is like just look around and be like if this kid could do it, what makes me think that I can't, So like especially now, like working with the government, before I even started with them, I was like, shoot, like I was really doubting myself and stuff. But now that I work with them, seeing half of the guys there, I'm like, what the hell? Like, if these knuckleheads could do it, like shit, I could fly through here. So yeah, man, just always, just always work hard, and then you'll stand out for sure. Don't even doubt yourself.
Appreciate that, bro. Thank you.
I think for me, I would just add, it goes back to like what has been stated, like your values. So for those that have me on social media, y'all know that I still party. I'm still living it up. And I think it's quite often in these moments where like I'm in the classroom, there's people brilliant in my classroom. And it's very much of like, sometimes I look down and like this previous quarter, I can tell you like, I did not get the grades I expected, they're still good grades because, you can't have lower than, in my program, you can't have lower than a B. So sadly, I got a B in one of the classes. But I think it's like very much a lot of these moments is like very much thinking, having these communications with your people. I'm very grateful that I did my research and I looked at like, what are the demographics in my cohort? So what is the program that I was seeking? And like, are there people like me in this program? And my program is a bunch of first gen, or is a bunch of, individuals that are POC. So it's like, I'm see so much of individuals like me that it's a support, and we're always pushing and each other and motivating each other. So I think it's like doing your research, like if you're very much of an extrovert and want to like make sure that you're in a program where you see representation, do that extra research, reach out and like figure that out. What is it that you're trying to find? It may be difficult to find even a small percentage, because the higher you get into higher education, the less we're likely to be visible. But it's just taking that extra time and trying to get like that small percentage if you can, and like that percentage makes a difference.
Thanks, bro. I added a little bit in the chat. So kind of like what I'm picking up is you would say like surrounding yourself with like a good support system is also like one of the beneficial parts or like one of the key parts that getting over that. So making sure like you're surrounded by the right kind of people that you want to be around, or kind of like chasing the same things as you.
Yeah, I would say like surrounding yourself around that. I'm very much like my cohort is very much, we're very always in projects. So I surround myself with individuals in the projects that I know that they're going to be striving, or they're going to have, you know, similarities as me, same interests, and we're going to have difficulty like trying to seek the same opportunities in the certain industries that we're trying to strive for. So it's like at the end of the day, you still have like that support group, you know, and it goes back to like there's so many like questions that you can ask, but like figuring out how is the program that you're trying to apply to, what is their intention and how is it like structured, is a really big aspect on like how that can help you and guide you and try to combat this in like other ways.
Thank you. Appreciate it, bro.
All right. I think that is it for that question from all the responses. Thank you again for that question, Ivan, and thank you for all of you for answering. With that being said, we're going to open the floor to any other questions, and if not, we have other questions we can do. So I don't see any questions in the chat, therefore I'm going to go on with our next question. So I know, Josh, you seems like you had a break between school and work, and you got an industry a little bit, but I guess this is for everybody. Did you all take a break when you're transitioning from undergrad to grad school, and how long would you say that it take? And was we already talked about the transition, but how did you make that decision that you wanted to go to grad school overall? Like, was this something you thought in your undergrad, or was this like a spur of the moment type thing? So, floor is open.
I tend to go first, but I don't want to be the one talking all the time. So someone else who want to jump in, go ahead.
I mean, I can go because like I would say I didn't take a break. Probably regret not taking a break. But I would say like what really motivated me to go into grad school, it was very much conversations that I had with individuals, and it would be like my mentors and how they saw that I can go far. So I think it was very much of like, I knew I wanted to do it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just started talking to the faculty and like seeing what are potential degrees that I can do. And the more I talked, the more I figured out what was better fit for me. But I think like that was my best intention, like of kind of going straight into, because in my field specifically, like you can't get a good paying job if you don't continue. Sadly, that's how the arts are very much structured. So I know I needed to keep on going, but that's why I kind of was like, I'm not going to take a break because I can't take a break. Like, I'm not going to, I knew if I entered, I was going to want to like, I potentially wasn't going to return back. So that's why I just continued to move forward, get it done and over with.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat as Mario. So I didn't take a break. I just went straight into the master's program because I know myself, if I would have taken the break, I definitely wouldn't have wanted to go back. Yeah, so, but overall, what I would suggest is make sure you guys research whatever industry or where your guys' goals are to be in the future. Let's say you want to work for a certain like X company. Do your research. What are the requirements? What will make you stand out there? Sometimes maybe you don't even need a master's. Just with your bachelor's, you can make it far. Save yourself from the debt and the time. But yeah, overall, thankfully, originally I wanted to go to vet school, but after when it was time to apply for vet school and I saw the debt I was going to get into and the time it was going to take to actually become a vet, I opted out. And so what motivated me to get my master's was I researched where I wanted to be in the future. And with my master's, I could get there. So thankfully I got into where I wanted to be, which is USDA. And now I could just, the sky's the limit now. So make sure you guys do your research. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I have to highlight that. When you're in undergrad choosing a major, you have a lot more room for error because you're younger. There's less time involved, there's less money. But to the point when you get your master's, now you're sitting on top of your experience, and now you have the responsibility to think a little more critically about your decisions for masters. So the end goal is helping your career, right? Or the end goal can maybe literally put the doctorate name, on your title. But whatever that end path is, identify it and then trace back the steps. But we would warn you is if you get any random degree, they might not be a job for it, right? So the economics are a huge driver, unfortunately. If I could choose, I'd be a doctorate in philosophy. Like I just love thinking, sitting there, but no one's going to pay me for just thinking about crazy ideas. So when I took a break throughout those years, I knew I wanted to get into a master's program because my mom did it. So I have the privilege of having a parent that already went through the program. And with that in mind, right, knowing my privilege, it was, what do I choose? And what I saw in engineering was, in this specific case, the engineers usually chose to get really specific. So a master's in mechanical engineering, for example, and they got somewhat rewarded, but we quickly saw the business majors would just like get paid 10, 20% above them, and then eventually become their managers. They become directors or vice presidents of the company, for example. So seeing that, I kind of, you talk, you network, and you ask the hard questions. One of the hardest questions I had to ask was, there was an engineer, 30 years in the refinery, so he's almost about to retire. Graduated with a bachelor's and stayed in that job. And I was like, hey, how come you never got into a management position? You've been here for so long. And he simply said, they didn't choose me. Like that option was not open to him. But he thought over the years, right, you just gain this experience. But unfortunately, it's so competitive that, right, the economics drives you to choosing the master's degree. So there's tons that go into the choosing. Is it the right time? Are you ready for the commitment, right? But for me, I want to add another layer to this. When I graduated, I didn't have a good GPA at all. I had like a 2.2 GPA from bachelor's. I struggled in mechanical engineering. So right off the bat, my options were pretty limited, but I got into the MBA and I applied for one other program. I didn't get in. So the economics drove me here. My grades drove me here. And honestly, I already got the job that I was going to get when I graduated. So I'm pretty much capitalizing on it anyway. And that's kind of what happens. If you're struggling in school, you are narrowing your opportunities. But on the other hand, the master's opens up more opportunities for you too. So
So great
I got
question.
another question.
Oh, go
My
for
bad,
it.
bro.
You're good. No, I'm just saying thank you all for responding again. Good question, Anthony. Yeah, go ahead, Ivan.
I had another question. This one's kind of more tailored towards Josh. You did mention that you had not the best GPA in undergrad. So with somebody who might be struggling with like their GPA as an undergrad and looking into grad school, I guess what would you recommend when you go into that research process? Because I know you said that due to that it kind of like limited your resources or limited like what you can apply for. So how would you go about doing research in that sense then, or like kind of just researching the different options available? Because me myself, I would most likely I kind of I'm looking into an MBA as well, a Master's in Business Administration as an industrial engineer. I did struggle a bit though, so I kind of like I don't have the best GPA. So how would you recommend going about it?
Yeah, so great question. And I know this might be specific. We might have rock stars in here that have 4.0 GPAs, but yeah, speaking to my background, I struggled. And the best thing I could tell you is don't lose hope. You have to rely on being scrappy, being resourceful. So what I did was I had this program that was like, dude, I want to do it. It's perfect for me. It was engineering management. I was like, dude, right up my alley. But in big letters, it said minimum 3.0 GPA, and I graduated with 2.2. So I applied anyway, didn't get in. But the MBA program, I believe, had a 2.5, I want to say, or 2.6, something like that. So even off the bat, I was still not, it was not applicable to me. But I didn't give up. I contacted the head of department. I contacted one of the professor. I sent them simple one email. Hey, here's my background. Here's my resume. Here's all the information you could need to make a judgment call. I'm not going to just say, please let me in. I'm a great student, right? I pitched myself. So learning how to sell yourself. Sometimes maybe it's not even one email. Maybe you have to ask for an in-person meeting to make it really effective, to drive your point across. And tell your story. So my story was I'm a first generation into engineering or even any STEM. None of my family has background in a technical degree, right? My mom already said did have a MBA, but when I pitched it like that, the narrative changes, right? Like this person came from the community colleges, they went into the university, and you can start to see that this person has really worked specifically to get to this program. And it makes it easy on their part to let you in. So I actually got in even before I applied. They're like, hey, here's your green light. You finished all your math. I finished calculus 3, so didn't need to take statistics. Waive that right off the bat. And that's just my specific background, but that's definitely the message to you is just don't let that one denial letter kick you down. Just keep going.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate that. Honestly, that helped out a lot.
I just want to add, I do know that I was one of the rock stars, so I'm just gonna so I never got a denial, but just hear me out. One of the biggest things that I would highly recommend, if what the programs that you're trying to look for and you're interested in, if they have an info session, attend those info sessions, and you can ask what is the GPA average of entry, and they will disclose to you, because this is information that they need to know when so at least my program that I got into, they said the average was a 2.8, I believe, but on the paper when you applied and you just went through like the actual website, it said a 3.2. So it's like a lot of the times, they don't want to update the website because it kind of like it takes away, and it's a lot of time. So attending those info sessions really does allow you to kind of like hear what's the most recent information out there.
Damn, bro, I didn't even think about that, but thank you. That actually helps out a lot too. That makes a lot of sense. I have seen stuff where like kind of there's inconsistencies with like a post, whereas when you show up to like the actual info session and they give you the different information regarding it.
Yeah.
All right. Right on, Ivan. Thank you for that question and thank you for the answers. Josh, Mario. Oh, you want to add something on J Figgy?
No, I just gotta say I gotta take off, guys. I got a meeting in 5 minutes. If you guys have any questions or anything specifically for me, feel free to text me or call me. Justin has my phone number, so feel free to ask him for it. But it was a pleasure seeing all you guys, and yeah, don't be discouraged. Hopefully, you guys achieve all the goals you guys have. And yeah, feel free to reach out.
Right on. Thanks for coming up. We appreciate it. And hope you have a good night. Good luck at your meeting.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, Doug.
All right. With that being said, does anybody have any other questions? If not, I have another one. No? All right. So when going into grad school, I mean, the application process does seem a bit more daunting. There definitely, I know we mentioned that some people may not have had the experience of like having somebody going to grad school, but still even the application process, how did you go about it? And were there any resources that you possibly used? Like, I don't know, maybe going to the Career Center and asking for help? Like, what resources did you seek in order to make your decision in going to grad school and actually applying?
All right, I'll go first. Because this is all from like what y'all have access to. So this is like the most important thing, takeaway. The Career Center has workshops on understanding what you need to do for grad school. It has an outline within the next 6 months period if you're interested in going into grad school. And this template is the best template ever because it eliminates the stress along the way. And it gets you thinking every step of the way. And it's just very much of like, you can be doing your coursework while thinking about grad school. And I highly recommend attending those workshops because it really allows you to like go with the flow of it. I'm currently going to do the whole process all over again, as I have made that decision to apply for a PhD. So yeah, like I don't have that opportunity, but I still have that template. And I really encourage folks to be intentional, like start, if you are thinking about, have those faculty and think, be very much of like, how can you not be a number two if you have a bad GPA, or if you don't have a bad GPA, think about how you can be better than just any number. Because even if you have a good GPA, the better you are at writing that personal statement, the better you are at connecting and sending those letters of recommendation earlier, the more likely you're going to get more money. I am lucky that I not only did I get into all my grad schools, but they were willing to pay for a majority of it because of like how well my whole portfolio looked. So it's being very intentional every step of the way. And I highly encourage that you take advantage of going, the first stop should be like the career fair and like the career center, and taking advantage of that workshop, and then start working with individuals that you know that are going to sell you well. I leave you out with that.
Oh, Mario, I love the dynamics. So then we're gonna go from opposite, right? I took a break. I had quite a bit of time. I actually took like 2 years. So that first year I looked on the website and it was like deadline. I was like, oh, well, great. I had totally forgot what deadlines were after being removed for so long. So right here we have total polar opposites, but the overall process is, yeah, you need a letter of rec. It's a couple pages. I took like 6 months on my letter, letter rec from individuals, and then your personal statement. I took 6 months of writing it. I love writing, but I took my stuff in stages to give myself that time. So definitely the whole process, right, is if you're going to take it on from start to finish, it's intentional, and you have to set it up like a class. Like it's your own, like you have quizzes, you have your own personal deadlines, you have a big midterm for the due dates. And then the final day is those letters of rec, you can't see them, right? It's just like what you did in your undergrad. So being intentional right now of who can I develop my relationship so I can get that letter of rec. In my experience, I used my boss. Me and him had a really good relationship. He knew I'd been out of school for a while, so I couldn't use a professor. So I use my colleagues, and I wish I had that template. That sounds great, but I used my buddy had already started a master's program at Cal Poly. So I basically took all my stuff to him. He reviewed it, helped me out because he was fresh. So you know, even me, I still have mentors. I gravitate towards people that are more successful than I am, more hardworking, and make sure I can ping ideas off of them, and they tell me when I'm screwing up and when I'm doing things right. So and I think we touched on one other quick topic on the money. So right on one end you have hardworking student, 4.0 GPA, you're going to get rewarded, right? Schools are going to offer you money. On my end, I was struggling. Here's what I did. When you are looking at master's programs and you've been with the company for a few years, you can quickly see if they're going to sponsor your program. So when I was with the company, they did not sponsor master's programs. They basically only chose the one person out of like maybe 50 candidates. But which was too bad. I hired on, they said they do pay for your master's program. So it was kind of deceiving. And I was pretty let down. That's why I left the company. So this new company where I hired on, I said from the get-go, hey, we're going to negotiate my salary, my benefits, and I need you to pay for my master's program. And we went back and forth a couple times. So a little bit more conversation to negotiating salaries. You could do that later. But yeah, the company decided to pay for my master's program. So that's one way to kind of get funding for it. But besides that, it's kind of old school loans, family asking for money, handouts.
Also, I
Right.
just want to state, y'all can still negotiate on how much a school gives you if you're really worthy of that school. Because I negotiated for UCR to keep me, and UCR paid up more just to keep me. So like you can even do that with like them paying for you.
Right on. Thank you both of you for the very useful info. I didn't know that myself. So with that being said, we have about time for one more question before we're gonna call it off for today. But as any of the hermanos have any questions that they'd like to ask? Going once, twice. All right, what's up, Ivan? You get that last question.
Hate to be the guy to ask the third question, but my last question would be, how did you guys go about asking for help in grad school? You know, like I know in undergrad we kind of have like the office hours and stuff like that to go, and it's kind of a bit easier. Even though, like for me personally, it's so difficult for me to ask for help. But like, how would you go about it in grad school as to compare to undergrad? Because obviously, like grad school is more like really nobody's holding your hand anymore. So how would you guys go? How did you guys go about it? What would you recommend? You know, just to kind of like ask for help before it gets too late.
All right, I'll go. I'll go. So honestly, at least like I'm very blessed with my like where I love where I go. My professors are honestly like the chillest people. Like we can go get drinks at the bar, like at the actual bar on our campus. So they're really like chill and like they're amazing. So I see, and the culture in our department is very much of like they're your friends. They're here to be your mentors and guide you. They're not no more your professors, because even then they will like lecture class or seminars. They're just there to facilitate discussion and have us all kind of like interact and mingle and think perspectively, as we are now not more like just consumers of knowledge, but creators of knowledge. So we are now taking that next step of like creating what is the new material that's going to be needed for like the world that we're trying to strive for. So it's like completely different. I can go to office hours and it's like chill and laid back. And I think you taking that time, like you're gonna now see when you go into higher education, like you're always going to be potentially going to office hours because you might have questions on the material, you might not get it, and they're there just to be like helping you out, and they're there to work with you. They're not there, no one's there trying to fail you. They'll even make it very clear, at least for us, like they're not there to fail you, they're there to help you learn, and just understand the material. It's going to be very dense. They understand the material's dense, so they expect you to be going to office hours. Unlike undergrad, they stay there like they're for office hours and they're kind of like laid back, waiting for you. No, like people are actually always going to office hours. In at least our program, it's very much of we constantly go. The ones that are constantly going to the professors are grad students, and the ones that are constantly undergrads typically go to TAs. So that's how it really is the dynamic within UCR. But yeah, like break that stigma, like go to office hours.
So thanks, bro. Appreciate that answer.
Yeah, and I want to highlight too, the programs are pretty small. So the definition of the cohort is that first class you take, those people are all just gonna go along with you. It's not like undergrad where there's like 180 people in that first class and they are everywhere. And when I walk into the class, the professor like listens to you because they know they can learn as much as the reciprocal relationship there. So it's definitely a trip, right? You're walking in there and they like tell you, hello, sir, hello, ma'am, because we're an industry, right? We're peers. And you know, with that being said, my professor of operations management, he opened up our midterm to be 3 weeks. He's like, I know you're busy, you're working, you got family, you got parties to go to. Do it whenever you want. You got 3 weeks to do it. And I just blew my mind because I was so used to like midterms of like, oh shit, this is so stressful. But no, it's a different game when you get here. And you will get here, believe me. You guys are on the path. If you're listening to all this stuff, no doubt.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you for that.
Right on. Well, thank you for the question, Ivan. Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Mario, for answering all the wonderful questions today. First of all, we'd like to thank everybody for coming out. And then I'm going to hand it off to Justin.
Yeah, as mentioned by Anthony, Rody, thank you all for showing up to our grad panel. Josh, that last thing that stood out to me, I did not ever realize that you can have a 3-week long midterm or exam. That actually sounds awesome. Like I might just go for that alone. No, I'm playing, of course. But yeah, thank y'all for the really great experience. We honestly, we're like privileged to, host this panel as well. And just to have a transfer of information. So yeah, I was gonna say if any of the undergraduate students, like any of the hermanos, want to get the contact information, alumni, if you'd love to just go ahead and drop, anything, any type of social media you may have or any like your number. I know I'm gonna drop Josue's number relatively soon, starting. But yeah, I think with that, when everyone's ready, we're ready for props, and we can go ahead and call it off. So I just want to start it off. Props to the alumni for showing up.
Props to the questions.
Props to our academic chairs.
Props.
Props.
Props to the GB who showed up.
Props. Props to grad school.
Props.
Props.
Props to midterms.
Props, I guess.
Props to all the great advice.
Props.
Props. Hold up, let me put my camera on. Oops, sorry guys.
Props to Gus turning on his camera.
Props.
Right on. Any more props?
Props to next week's meeting
Hey, big props.
in person.
Hey, props. Wait,
Props.
props to the study session collab with HEU next week.
Props.
All right, any more props? All right, Justin, let's call it off. Hermanos
Alrighty.
Unidos on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hermanos
Unidos.
Hey, let's go.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank y'all for coming out to the grad school panel. We really do appreciate it. Seriously.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all. Again, thanks, Josh, for coming out. I know Mario had to head out.
Yeah,
We
no
will be
problem.
talking. If anybody has any questions or wants to have any of the contact info, they did drop it in the chat, but just feel free to message the academic chairs. We'll see what they can give out. And we got y'all. Thanks again for attending, and we hope you all have a phenomenal week.
Thanks.
Happy
Night,
St.
guys.
Patrick's Day.
Everybody, night night.